Within 5 minutes of waking up, you reach for your phone. Instantly, you absorb a dozen headlines, a string of text messages, 3 short-form videos, and an automated calendar alert. You process more distinct pieces of data before breakfast than a medieval scholar encountered in an entire month. Yet, instead of feeling enlightened by this abundance, you likely start your day feeling exhausted. In his book, The Architecture of Information, Dr. Atique Ur Rehman argues that this cognitive burnout is not a personal failure of willpower. The invisible structures governing how we interact with reality have mutated. Look at this early clay cuneiform tablet. For most of human history, information looked exactly like this: heavy, scarce, and difficult to reproduce. You had to actively hunt for it, traveling to specific libraries or seeking out living experts. We call this the Age of Discovery. Even when Johannes Gutenberg developed the wooden printing press in the 15th century, drastically lowering the cost of books, the core dynamic remained intact. You still had to deliberately choose a text, sit down, and focus your attention to extract its meaning. That high physical friction acted as a natural filter. It slowed the pace of consumption, forcing deep cognitive engagement and rewarding the brain's ability to actively synthesize raw data into actual, usable knowledge. Today, that dynamic is inverted. We live in the age of delivery. Information is no longer scarce, and it certainly does not wait for you to find it. Now, it actively hunts for you. Every digital action you take feeds into a central black box algorithm that delivers content to keep you staring. This predictive flow maps onto a slot machine. Tech platforms rely on a casino architecture, using unpredictable rewards to hijack your neurological dopamine loops. Because digital content is infinite, but your waking hours are finite, attention becomes the ultimate scarce resource. Platforms and creators are locked in a zero-sum competition to capture and hold your mental focus at all costs. This constant barrage leads to a condition known as information obesity. We gorge on a continuous stream of rapidly delivered data, but we lack the time, space, and focus required to metabolize those fragments into coherent understanding. Our cognitive limits evolved for slow, scarce environments. When confronted with optimized delivery, critical thinking gets overpowered. We end up trapped in a loop of passive consumption. Watch how these interconnected users begin to isolate. Algorithms strictly prioritize engagement, walling you off into color-coded filter bubbles. As groups drift apart, the connecting lines of our shared social reality violently snap. We enter epistemic fragmentation, operating on entirely different algorithmically delivered facts. This fragmentation is mirrored by a structural opacity called hermeneutical injustice. When the logic governing what we see is hidden inside a black box, the system removes the interpretive tools we need to determine fairness. Without a shared vocabulary for how the rules are applied, it becomes impossible to challenge them. Consider risk assessment algorithms used to calculate credit limits or screen job applicants. They often rely on proxies like postal codes or browsing history. Because the underlying logic is proprietary, individuals are left without evidence to prove they were penalized for their identity rather than their qualifications. The casino architecture dictates what you watch on your commute, but its reach extends further. It actively dissolves the shared interpretive frameworks, the common ground, that a functional society desperately needs to deliberate and survive. We often cling to the cultural myth of the lone genius, the idea, embodied by figures like Albert Einstein, that solitary minds can produce totalizing breakthroughs. But the sheer scale of modern knowledge makes it impossible for any isolated individual to fully comprehend our world. We are bound by the person-byte limit. This is the absolute biological and cognitive ceiling on how much information, context, and complexity a single human brain can reliably hold and process. Consider the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. No single engineer understands every line of code, aerodynamic stress, and material property required to make this machine fly. The aircraft exists far beyond the person-byte limit, relying entirely on highly distributed expertise. To manage this extreme complexity, humanity builds massive distributed knowledge networks and institutional trust. Systems like the Large Hadron Collider demonstrate the absolute peak of this coordination, holding and processing the information that no single person ever could. As the complexity of our infrastructure scales exponentially beyond human cognitive capacity, We are forced to outsource our sense-making to external systems. That necessity sets the stage for the integration of artificial intelligence. This brings us to the newest architectural transition. We are moving away from search, where a machine gives you a list of links to read and evaluate, and toward synthesis, where an AI generates a single integrated answer for you. Look at how this works through retrieval augmented generation, or RAG models. Thousands of raw data modes funnel into a central AI processor, which then extrudes a single, clean, highly confident thread of synthesized text. But an X-ray view reveals a severe epistemic risk, the loss of provenance. That polished, fluent output can easily mask deep uncertainty, hallucinate facts, and weave together jagged, mismatched data points that remain entirely invisible to the user. The solution to this danger is intelligence augmentation, or collaborative intelligence. AI serves as a powerful cognitive tool to process immense datasets, but human beings must explicitly remain in the loop as the ethical overseers and the ultimate judges of truth. Surviving this post-digital condition requires us to reclaim our epistemic agency. We must actively curate our attention, step outside of filter bubbles, and evaluate the automated answers. Knowledge no longer lives in isolated minds, and it certainly isn't found by passively scrolling through an infinite feed. True understanding now requires a deliberate, active partnership between human focus, trusted institutions, and algorithmic synthesis.